As Jane, a young McDonald's employee, handed a bag of fast food to the customer in the car, she noticed a familiar face. It was her estranged father, whom she hadn't seen in years. With trembling hands, she asked if he wanted ketchup or mustard, not expecting what he would say next. Slowly, Jane's eyes filled with tears, and she could already feel that she was about to burst out crying soon. Without even thinking, she threw the sauce packets at him and ran away into the bathroom. One of her colleagues, Marcia, shot the customer a dirty look, not knowing that it was Jane's father, and quickly followed her into the bathroom. When she arrived in the bathroom, Jane had locked herself into one of the stalls. Marcia couldn't help but ask, "Well, what did he say to you that made you cry so much? Is everything all right?" Jane explained that he was her father, and she hadn't seen him in years. She hesitated a little before continuing to tell her what he had said. He said that, "My mom has been lying to me. She always said that he never wanted to hear from me, and that he was a piece of shit, Dad, but he just told me that he's been looking for ways to contact me for years, but my mom made it difficult for him," she told Marcia with tears in her eyes. "And? Do you believe him?" "I don't know. He seemed genuine, but of course, I don't even really know him. I think I have to go home and talk to my mom about this. I need to know the truth." When she arrived, her mom was watching TV in the living room. "Honey, what happened? Are you okay?" she asked as soon as she laid eyes on Jane. It was obvious that she'd been crying. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something. It's important, and I need you to promise to tell me the truth," she said, immediately getting to the point. "Of course, my sweet girl. What is it? You know you can talk to me about anything," she said as she hugged her daughter. Jane's mother was an incredibly kind and sweet woman, and people often said she lit up a room when she walked into it. But this whole warm and loving aura disappeared when Jane said, "It's about Dad." Jane felt a knot form in her stomach, the familiar stories from her mother now ringing hollow. "Why do I feel like you're not telling me everything?" she asked. Despite Jane's persistent inquiries, her mother maintained a steadfast denial, firmly stating, "I have always told you the truth about your father. He was the one who left us, not the other way around." Jane's mother refusing to budge from her story, and Jane left without more questions than answers. In her old room, Jane started sifting through dusty albums and faded documents. She wondered if these fragments of her history could unravel the truth about her father's claims. Jane noticed discrepancies and dates that didn't align with her mother's timeline of events. A photograph of her father holding her as a toddler was marked with a date that contradicted her mother's story of him leaving early in Jane's life. In a forgotten box, Jane found old letters and notes. These letters, filled with words of love and regret, painted a different picture of her father, now seen through a lens of doubt. She struggled to reconcile these new, contradictory pieces of her past with the stories she had grown up believing. Jane's visit to her aunt brought new insights. Her aunt recalled moments that suggested her father had indeed tried to stay in touch. "He wasn't perfect, but he did ask about you, Jane," her aunt said. A family friend, hesitant at first, shared that the circumstances of her parents' separation were complex and fraught with misunderstandings. "It wasn't as black and white as you might think," they said, hinting at hidden layers in her parents' split. The weight of these conflicting narratives bore heavily on Jane, stirring a whirlpool of emotions within her. She felt adrift, caught between the shifting tides of her parents' stories. In moments of solitude, Jane turned to her old journals, the pages a repository of memories and feelings. As she read her own words from years past, she sought to find comfort and clarity amidst the emotional chaos that had enveloped her life. After much searching, Jane finally located her father, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. Upon contacting him, she sensed his reluctance to speak, his voice laced with a hesitation that hinted at unhealed scars and a fear of reopening old wounds. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jane sat across from her father, the air between them thick with years of unsaid words. He looked at her, his eyes a mirror of her own, filled with a mixture of regret, hope, and an unspoken fear of the truths that lay ahead. Jane's father began to unravel his side of the story, his voice trembling with emotion. He spoke of the years that had passed, each word revealing his vulnerability and the pain he had carried silently, painting a picture far different from the one Jane had known. He detailed his numerous attempts to be part of Jane's life, his efforts marred by unseen barriers and miscommunications. As he presented letters, evidence of his attempts to reach out to her, Jane's eyes widened in realization of the efforts he had made. Her father's voice cracked as he spoke of his profound sense of loss and regret, mourning the years he missed being a part of Jane's life. As Jane listened to her father, a growing seed of doubt about her mother's narrative took root in her mind. She found herself torn, struggling to reconcile the man before her with the distant, uncaring figure her mother had always described. Jane faced her mother once more, this time armed with the pieces of truth she had gathered. "I've spoken to Dad, and I know there's more to the story," she said firmly, her voice demanding honesty. "I need the whole truth, Mom. All of it." Under the weight of Jane's unwavering gaze, her mother's composure crumbled, revealing the truth in a flood of tears. "I sabotaged your father," she confessed, her voice choked with emotion. "He left me after I made a mistake, and in my hurt, I turned everyone against him, even you." Her mother's words poured out, admitting to years of lies and manipulation. She revealed how she twisted situations and narratives to alienate Jane's father, driven by a mix of fury, jealousy, and a desperate need for revenge. Jane listened, her heart heavy with a complex mix of emotions. While she struggled to reconcile with the magnitude of her mother's deception, she began to understand the depth of her pain and regret. Forgiveness seemed a distant shore, but Jane found herself taking the first tentative steps toward it. With a heart yearning to mend bridges, Jane reached out to her father, her voice tinged with regret for the lost years. She expressed a desire to start anew, to build the father-daughter relationship they had been denied. Her words an olive branch extended into the gap of time. In the days that followed, Jane and her father embarked on a journey of rediscovery, weaving new memories to fill the gaps of the past. Their conversations, a tapestry of stories and shared experiences, marked the beginning of a bond long overdue.